Especially when it comes to buying a shofar. You could see it in the store if you go into the store with the shofars. People pick up a shofar, it's a good shofar. They wouldn't know what's a good shofar, what's not a good shofar. The prices, what does it depend on? And then you find stickers for kashrus. Just 20 years ago, the shofars were being sold without any stickers, without any kashrus. But today, every shofar you could find is with a hechsher. What is that? What is this hechsher about? Why do we need a hechsher? And if we need a hechsher today, what was till now? What was the awareness about? So let's start Pushat Shechanurich. Everyone knows the basic. What's a kosher shofar? Shofar has to be from a kosher mean. Have a mic? No?
It's good.
I lost my voice a little. Try to project a little. Shechanurich says that a shofar has to be from a kosher mean. Any animal that you could eat, it's kosher. You could take if it has a shofar, it has a horn, you could use it. But it has to have a horn. A parah, a cow, is not kosher because it's not considered a shofar. Why isn't it considered a shofar? Because a shofar has to be a natural hole from one long like a pipe. And the way it works is that the horn has two parts. I could show it over here. You could see. There's a part that could come out when it sits for a while, dries up, or if you cook it in hot water for a few hours, it's going to pop out. That's the bone. And then there's I would say like a nail, like a different part that grows on the bone, and that keeps on adding more and more pieces. The older it gets, the longer it gets, and the bigger it gets. So naturally, it has a hole. This comes out, there's a natural hole over here. That's why it's called a shofar. The Lashon Shoferes, the Levush, and even before that it's brought out from the Scheiner. That's the Lashon Shofar. The Torah says the word shofar means a pipe, which is going to make a big difference halacha l'maaseh too. A parah doesn't have that mila, but all the other ones are kosher. There's another reason why we wouldn't use a parah, because it's going to remind us of the egel. That's the last thing we need on Hashanah. We're looking just for schusim. Therefore, the Mechaber says mitzvah b'shel ayil, to remind us the Akedah, to remember the Akedah, we're looking for schusim on Hashanah. Besides that, ayil has another mila, what the Gemara says, that it's kofif, it's bent, which is to tell a person, to hint to a person on Hashanah that you shouldn't feel you're okay, you're good, comfortable. You should feel broken in your heart, bent, kofif. The kfifis, interesting, the Shlo uses that the kofif lamata, says it should be bent downwards, and that's taka the way the shofar grows, downwards, it's bent downwards. It's interesting. Now, many people are always asking this question, what's about the taimen shofar? Taimen shofar, that long shofar, is that kosher? It's from a kosher mean, it's kosher. Doesn't have that mila from ayil, but it's kafif, and it's from a kosher mean, it's kosher. It's just missing the mitzvah shel ayil. How come the taimen use it? I asked, but the taimen, the rabbi over here, Shimshon Chaticha, he says we don't use it. He takes out a shofar. This is what we use on Hashanah. We use that different times in the year. They blow shofar other times too. But then I heard other taimen do use it, whatever it is. But akapanim, it's a kosher zach, it's a kosher shofar, but it doesn't have that mala. It's called a kudu, or in English it's called an antelope. Antelope is a kosher animal. The Rambam happens to say that, it says a little drop different. Kol shofar is pesulim chitz mikeren hakeves, from kvasim. Keves happens to be, keves and ayil is the same thing. Not even the same family, it's the same thing. Keves is kvasim b'nei shana, and then when it becomes after b'nei shana, becomes 2 years old, they grow up very quickly, these animals, then it starts getting horns. That's the aisle. So really, a keves, when the Rambam is saying a keves, he means a younger aisle, which, if you want to know if you go into the store if it's a keves or not, if it's going to be a large shofar, a regular normal sized shofar, it's not going to be from a keves. It's going to be from an aisle. This may be, it's quite small. Maybe this is still could be considered from a keves. It's quite small. What? Softer?
Yeah. Is it softer when they're hanging?
No. I'll show you pictures. I'm sure everybody knows what this looks like. This is a regular picture from a sheep. Doesn't have any horns. Small sheep. This is already a next stage. Something in between. This is the next stage. This is already the next stage. It keeps on adding on more and more pieces. And it keeps on pushing it further and further, and the twirls keep on getting bigger and bigger. So if you want to know if it's an aisle, if it's big enough, it's an aisle. If it's small, then it might be a keves. Just interesting, I said the Lashon Shveferes, a shofar, it plays itself halacha l'maisa. We know there's halachas about holes and cracks. Cracks, really, the real passless is if it cracks and the length of the shofar, this way. We machme even a little bit because it could open up more, but really if it's a crack and you close it, Shulchan says close well, it could be good. But the problem is if it will open, the chashash is it's going to open straight and open up the whole thing. So what's the problem if it's opened? The problem is that it loses the shem shofar, not a pipe anymore. That's why it's possible. Means even if you tighten it, but still it doesn't have the shem shofar. So Levish says very clear that the shem shofar means a pipe, and therefore if there's a crack, it's possible. So talking about the crack, that's very important to know. That's one of the reasons why there's Scheiner on the shofars, because they happened to find, there's a few reasons, but one of the main reasons was the cracks. We're going to soon see later how you make the shofar. When you make the shofar, it's very easy. It should become a crack when they make it. Now it's very easy. It's almost impossible. It shouldn't become a crack if you don't know what you're doing. You have to really know what you're doing, how to make a shofar. If not, it's automatically going to crack. So this happens. The mashgiach that stands over there showed me a whole box from shofars from one day that he put aside because it happened to crack. So it means he's standing oimad al gabayim and making sure every single shofar doesn't have a crack, because if it gets a crack and you just pull it right back when it's hot, you're not going to see that it ever had a crack. So if the mashgiach is not standing there when they make the shofar, there's almost no way you're going to be able to figure it out. So you really need to have a mashgiach there. B'shas they're making the shofar, and a mashgiach standing, when they bend it in a way that it could get a crack. Just the interesting thing, the shofar, the history of a shofar. We know in instruments, there's two parts.
Don't you have a crack? You fill it back together, make kosher?
So, if you want to go in the halachas, you just said before, really, if it's cracked totally through, then it's possible. If it's cracked partially, we are machmer because it could crack more, but really, technically, it could be good. But you don't want to buy a shofar, especially spend 100 to 200,000 on a shofar that has a crack, right? If it's a b'diavad, you don't want to have such a shofar. So the history from the shofars is very interesting. There's two types of instruments. It means many types of instruments, but they all go into these two categories. Either it's a wind instrument or a string instrument, right? All instruments go into one of these two categories. The first wind instrument happens to be was the shofar. Naturally, popped out, first person that found such a shofar, and if it became a hole, or he made a hole and he blew in it, and he saw it blows like a shofar blows. And it could be if you go back in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, it could be that's what they did. They just made a hole and just blew in. Right? So, and then if you add on more holes, you're going to see like a Kollel, like a flute. Every single hole is going to change the note. So that's the history of the shofar, the history of all wind instruments. Then they made a man-made shofar, which is called a chatzotzres. It's just not made, it's not a natural thing. They imitated it. They made it out of metal. And that's chatzotzres. Chatzotzres and shofar could have sounded exactly the same or very similar. And they used in the Bais Hamikdash both. They were interchangeable. They used to use this and then do a marach b'shofar, marach b'chatzotzres. The Gemara on Shabbos says that they used to mix up chatzotzre, used to call shofar chatzotzre, chatzotzre shofar. It was basically the same thing. This was man-made and this was a natural thing. Psham Shavlush points out, why do we have to blow shofar Hashanah with a natural shofar? I'm going to see the halachas also go around this idea. He says because Rosh Hashanah, the main message that the Rebbeinu Shalom wants to give us with the mitzvah is that whatever we do a whole year, even good things, we're doing it. It's our stuff that ma'asim from a person. When it comes to Rosh Hashanah, we have to go back. The way to go back to tshuva and to go back to malchus and from the Rebbeinu Shalom is to go back to the shoresh, to what the Rebbeinu Shalom made, the nature of the Rebbeinu Shalom himself. Something was not touched, was not produced by man. And that's what a shofar is. It's a horn, a sound that you're making out of something. It's a natural thing. Versus a chatzotzres can have the same sound, but it's made by a man. And he says that purity, that's what we have to get to on Rosh Hashanah. That's the message from the shofar Rosh Hashanah. And that's the way you connect to the Rebbeinu Shalom, through that nature. So therefore, if you go through all the halachas, you're going to see the halachas are very much around this point. You can't add on anything to the shofar. Can't be shofar v'dovacha. Can't add on anything to the shofar. Change the way the shofar is, make this narrow and this wide, and so on. You can't pick the shofar and make it into your own thing. You could take off, make it a little nice. You could take off the roughness, that you could do. But if you're going to add on anything to the shofar, that's going to change the sound of the shofar, that's going to be shofar v'devacha, and that's going to be puzzling. Or change the nature of the shofar.
Don't they bend the shofars?
Right. You could straighten out the shofar. Yeah, that you could do. What? Or bend it. But you're not changing the actual shofar itself, is not being changed. If you're changing the whole way the shofar works, then it's a problem. Real shofar is the natural hole that's there. That's the real shofar. This part really is just an added piece. We're going to soon see what they do today is different than what they used to do. If you go to in Morocco and Taiman, what they used to do, they used to cut off the shofar by the place where there was a hole, or close to that place, and then just dig a little hole to get to that natural hole, and they used to blow in just like that. The way shofar looked then, it was very thick. The place where you blew in was very thick, so it didn't fit into the mouth. You had to put it on the mouth, similar to a trumpet. You'd put it on the mouth. And if you look at Shulchan Aruch, there's a whole look in Shulchan Aruch that you could see it really matches up with that. Because the Shulchan Aruch is talking about if you put silver or gold, which is going to change the sound, is going to be puzzle. But if you put it on the side where the mouth is, there it's going to depend. If it's going to be the place where it touches the mouth, then it's a chatzitza. But if it's a place where it doesn't touch the mouth, there's one shit that the Mechaber says that is not going to be a problem, because not a chatzitza, and it's not going to change the sound. It's just sitting on the side. And to understand such a thing today is very hard, because all the shofars today go straight into the mouth. So it has to be, you're talking about, there's a thickness to the shofar on the side of the shofar over here. There's a thickness to it where you could put on the lip and still stay with extra part of the shofar, that it's possible to put over there some gold. The lashon from the Mechaber is, let me see if I have it here. It's opposed of the Mokam Anochas Per apostle. So the Mechaber goes further. Yesh mefarshim Mokam Anochas Per Hani Oiva HaShofar, the thickness of the shofar, Litzat Panimi, the inside of the thickness, Shemaniach Shampiv, Vatzad HaChitzoy Muna Oivi Atzmei, from the thickness itself. The outer side, Kori Shlev Mokam Anochas Per. If you don't know this fact, how it used to be, it's very hard to understand the words of the Mechaber. You can't make out what is he talking about. But if you understand that the shofar had a thickness, then you could chap the chiluk over here. But the way the Taimana used to do in the Moroccan, they used to just, cut it till close to where there was a hole and blow in and finish. They used to leave the shofar very, they would say naturally. People are very busy, they want a natural shofar, not touch. But that's the way it used to be over there. But in Europe, where the Ashkenazim came from, they made the shofars nice. They used to not polish it, they used to work it till it used to look like it was polished. Polish is another reason why you need a hechsha, because if you put polish on the shofar, it's again shofar v'davacha. You're adding on something to the shofar, which is going to make it possible. And there is in the market, and I imagine there still is, but this is one of the reasons they found shofars that had lac on it, looked nice and what's that shofar? Bring a shofar. And it looked nice and shiny, and it was really added on, which is a problem. And that's why you need to have a good hechsher for shofar. It's not enough to have a hechsher, you have a good hechsher, because there was in the market a lot of shofars that have problems. It's interesting, we said before about making a hole in the shofar. If you look at the Mechaber itself, he really doesn't have an issue with the hole. It's basically the Ramah bringing a kolboy that has a problem with making holes in the shofars. But really, if it's just the hole itself, it shouldn't be a problem, according to the Mechaber. And someone would ask the question, what's the difference between a hole and a crack? Why should a hole be better? You can have many holes, at least it's not ruboy, it's not a problem. Why? Because what's the problem if you're making a hole? It's still a natural thing, it's just, you make a musical instrument out of it, so what would be the issue? If you have ruboy holes, then it loses the whole shem. Crack, the problem is because it loses shem shofar, even though it's not missing anything. So it's not, the problem is not that it's missing something, the problem is it loses the shem shofar. But if you soisim that hole, you close up that hole, then it's going to be a problem, because what are you putting? Your finger, you're putting a dava, then it's already shofar v'dava. If you're putting the mean from shofar itself, then there's a talk about it, if it's going to be possible or not. Yeah, so you see over here, this shofar also has a shine. But this shine that you're seeing in the shofar is nothing added onto the shofar. When they buff up the shofar, similar to shoe polish, the buffing itself, they put such a chemical as the buffing it, and that makes that shine. But there's nothing added onto the shofar. But many shofars were in the market, maybe still are, that had, you could see an extra layer of shine.
You're trying to keep the shofar natural, so why is it not better to do the way they did it in Yemen with the holes? Now we're drilling a hole.
The Gemara says that if you take off all the layers, and even it's a very thin layer, it's still considered a shofar. So, and over the years we saw that they used to make the shofars very nice and thin, and they used to, make it with nice crowns. They don't do any more crowns and all kind of stuff in the shofars. To make over here indentation, used to engrave in the shofars, and it says in the Mechaber, it's not a problem as long as you're not adding on to the shofar. It's the shofar itself is what it is, then it's okay. I'm going to go a little bit into how to make a shofar. So like I said before, they used to just cut it over here and finish. There was no problem. But what we want is to be able to put the shofar, what Ashkenazim did all the years, they wanted to be able to put the shofar in the mouth and be able to make from a small mouthpiece, put it into the mouth. So they needed to drill a hole, because once you're going to the narrow part, over here it's clogged up. Here is not, there's no natural hole over here. So they would have to cut it off over here. It's a small shofar, but you get the idea. And then from over here, drill a hole into here. And even today, forget about years ago, it's almost impossible to be able to do such a thing, to drill a hole from over here into here. Because every shofar is trilled in a different way, and to get a bit to go in such a kind of angle, every time a different kind of angle, is almost impossible. So the only way they were able to do it is to straighten out this part. They would take this part and pull it back, literally like straightening a banana. They would pull it back, but because it's hard, it's impossible. So they would make it soft. How do you make it soft? They would put it in the fire, in heat, and that heat makes it softer, and once it's soft, you could really play around with it. You could pull it and do whatever you want with it. But at the same time, if you're going to make it too soft, it's going to lose the whole shape. So you really have to know what you're doing. They put it into heat, and the second it gets soft enough that they're able to make it straight, they're going to pull it out and put it on a piece of metal and try to pull it backwards. Now, to get it exactly, it shouldn't be too hot, and it shouldn't be too cool. There's a big mimchashaft, and you have to right away do it, and many times, by pulling it back, it gets a crack over here. One crack, or sometimes even a ruboy, a crack that goes mamash through the whole, most of the part, and that's a serious issue. I can show you pictures. Let's see pictures. So here you have the shofar, how it looks after the one. Let me first try to put it in the fire. One second.
Hot water won't soften it up.
What?
Hot water won't soften it up.
Hot water is never good for a shofar. If you ever put shofar in water, b'chlal, especially hot water, it's going to kill the shofar. It's going to make the shofar blow up and expand, and then become, what's it called again? Retract again. That's going to make full of cracks in the shofar. Here you have a picture of a shofar that's being sold today. Many people blow shofars, they don't know halachas. They have the tradition of blowing shofar. This is being sold today, such kind of shofars. Shofars that have silver. What it says in the mechabi you shouldn't use, because it's shofar v'davacha. Here you have a picture, someone putting the shofars in fire, literally in fire, like a Frankfurter, in fire. And then right afterwards, he puts it on such a press and pulls it back. Here you could see when it's straightened already. With his hands, they pull it back until it straightens. So to be able to do this, it shouldn't get a crack. There's a big mimchashaft. Once you straighten that, now you could drill a hole. You have to take off this piece on the top. Once it's straight, over here, cut this off, or they sand it off, and then you could drill a hole. There's two holes in the shofar. There's a narrow hole, which is around a quarter of an inch, and then there's a wider hole on the top, like a funnel. And both of them, you have to be a big memcha. The hole over here, number one, it can be too big, it can be too small. If not, it's not going to blow well. And to get it on the right angle is also a memchashaft. And then the funnel, this is also a thing. You have to get the shofar. When you blow in, if it would just be a small, tiny hole, it's very hard to blow in. So they have to make this funnel hole to be able to catch the coal, and then it goes into the narrow hole. This thing itself is also, it's not, everybody makes them different, and every shofar comes out different. And when you're buying a shofar, it's kedai to know for everybody, a different shofar would be good for you. Not everybody, means for one person, this could be a very easy, good shofar. There are shofars that are problems, that they're not made well for everybody. But even the good shofars, not every shofar is good for everybody. Shofar is like a shidduch. It has to work for you, for your lips, for the way you blow, and there's many factors that play itself in. One of the factors is the mouthpiece. There are round mouthpieces, there are more oval ones, bigger ones, smaller ones, and you're going to find, if you start playing around with shofars on your lips, you're going to see that some work better. People have thicker lips, usually rounder, and thinner lips, but everyone's going to find, it depends how you tighten your lips. It depends on many things. If you have wide lips, narrow lips, it's going to make a big difference what mouthpiece you should take. So I can't say any klal for anybody. It's an individual thing. What's going to work for you? Then there's another important thing you should know: the size of the shofar. Now, bigger shofars are more expensive, but there is a certain mile and bigger shofars too. Besides maybe Tekias shofar, good even maybe hidden mitzvah. You find by Sefer Torah, other places that hidden mitzvah is always to take something that's bigger. But besides that, it's going to blow different. If you take the smaller shofars versus the larger shofars, you can see they blow totally different. They catch a different note. Shofars is not like, it doesn't have, it's not a flute. It just has 1, 2, 3, usually not more than 3 notes that are going to catch well. And every shofar blows a different note. And every person has a different note that is comfortable between the notes that the shofar is going to blow. Some people are easy to blow high notes. Some people it's hard for them. They have to blow the low note. Now, it's not very hard for you to blow the high note. I would tell you to buy a big shofar, a large shofar, because the larger shofars they blow the low notes easily. Think about a trombone. The longer the pipe is, the lower the note. The shorter the pipe is, the higher the note. So the longer shofars are going to easily blow a low note and give you more volume on the low note, versus the shorter shofars are going to blow more high note. So you have to know, it's another thing that you can play around with to see what works for you. Talk to halachas also? What about halachas? We spoke about the sanding already. Okay, after they finished all that, they sand the shofar. Sanding with, they make it nice and shiny. And the only other thing is important to mention, some say that you should even take off the sticker. Anything that could change the color of the shofar. It's hard for me to see that the sticker should make a difference. But they write in it, you should take off the sticker just in case the sticker is going to make somewhat of a difference in the shofar, in the color of the shofar. If it's going to change the shofar, the color of the shofar slightly, it'll be a problem. The shofar itself, it's another important halacha, it does not make a difference what sound it makes. Some people say it doesn't sound good. Really, even if it's a raspy, not a geschmacka sound, it's still kosher. Shofar is a shofar, whatever it blows, color is ksheiris. But, like we said before, if you're going to catch the note of that shofar, it's going to be nice. If you have a normal shofar, if you're going to go off the note of the shofar, it's going to start scratching. The shofar is going to start sounding very staticky and hazy. It's not going to sound clear. But that does not mean the shofar is not good. That might mean you're not blowing the shofar with the note of that shofar. If that shofar is a whatever note, you have to blow in that note.
How do you decide which note you're blowing?
You can't, the shofar decided. You have to figure it out. You have to test the shofar and see where it sounds clear. When you hear the shofar, that note is clear, then you know that's the sound. Usually you're going to hear a cling. That's clear. This is not so clear. Right? It could be worse. If you're going to hit the note, it's going to sound, it's going to have such a squeak, such a clearness in the sound of the shofar. So just by a little test like that is enough to figure out the note of the shofar. It's a good way if you want to start a shofar. Test the shofar first, you'll get the note. Once you get the note, just continue on to that note. It's a very good trick for people if they can't figure out where to start the shofar. Give it a little test and then continue. Any questions? What? No questions?
What about the people that put the gold and silver, meaning
just now,
that actually have that?
right, I just now showed a picture of it. So, if it's by the mouthpiece, it's chatzitza. You have to put the shofar on your lips. If it's on the side over here, if it changes the call from the shofar, it's a problem, it's puzzling.
So was he the one that would say to take a sticker off? They would say for sure not to put gold or silver in.
For sure. Even the lac that we said before, that shine, could also change the call. Now, if you have a good ear and you could test the shofar before and test it after, and you see no difference, then it should be kosher.
Does it make a difference if the crack is through and through, or just the crack on the outside of the shofar?
If it's only a crack on the outside, many shofars have cracks on the outside, and it's not a problem at all. Happens to be, bring up shofars, the grobe shofars. Bring on the backs. No, the interesting, because a lot of people have issues with something that, if you know how the shofar, we just said before how the shofar works. It keeps on adding on, let's say every week or every month, another piece and another piece, another layer, and that's what keeps on making the shofar longer and longer. So these bumps end up being like big grooves going up and down, mountains up and down. And when it comes in, when you start taking off the layers of shofar, yeah, a lot of times that grooved in is still left. So it looks like a crack, but it's really not a crack. So a lot of people bring such a lines in the shofar which look like cracks. It's not cracks at all. I wish that he would bring in the shofar a bit to show something.
What's the difference between gildy, which is shofar shapara, and a...
Right, so the gildy is pieces. It's pieces, it's not one long pipe. It's like someone put two separate pieces. Here, it's still considered one piece. Even though it's adding on, but it's still considered one big piece. It's not, if you look inside, it's like one long piece. It's not like separate pieces.
Shofar shapara is not looking like 7 pieces.
Yeah, look like a few pieces. See if I have a picture of it in a shofar shapara. No, I don't have. But you look at it, you'll see it looks like separate pieces.
Do you think it's a problem to take off the sticker on Rosh Hashanah? Is that an issue?
Taking off a sticker on Rosh Hashanah, on Shabbos to take off a sticker? You have to ask someone, it's a question for Hilchas Shabbos, Hilchas Yontiv. Read the shofars.
Oh, wow.
Read the Größe. The Größe? Okay, this is good. Here you could see, lately they're busy with natural. People are very busy with natural. It's a feeling, but some people like it. They like when it looks natural. So here you see, they didn't take off all the layers. So you see over here cracks, right? This crack is natural. If you would see it before that, it would look like this, and bigger in a bigger version. So if they would keep on taking off more and more layers, it would become like this. Sometimes you're going to see the layers, like over here. If you look over here, you see the colors. That's really the layers. You could see a little white, you can see a little, like it keeps on changing the shades. That's because it's really like this. It's really added pieces on, like another piece, another piece, another piece. But if you leave it like this, it's going to look like a crack. But this crack does not go through. It's not an issue at all. How would I know if a shofar does go, if the crack does go through, doesn't go through? It's a very good question. I asked the Rabbunim and they threw it back at me, and I kept on running around asking people how they used to check shofars. Some said with a light, some said with water, this way water, putting in water, putting the thing in water, or putting water in it, all kind of mahalchim. The only thing that I see now that I realize that works is blowing in ear, means you have to close up the top tightly, and you blow in ear, someone's going to be blowing in. If you feel that there's any place, you can put your finger on that place, let's say, where you think it's escaping air, put your finger over there and see if you feel anything is escaping. If you feel a strong resistance and nothing is coming out from there, then I would say it's not a crack through and through.
Wait, you said it could have been a crack, but it closed?
Yes.
No, if you're worried that a crack happened, or there is a crack, and you don't know if it's through and through. If it would be through and through, then some air would be escaping, right? If no air is escaping, then it's only on top that crack. It doesn't go through and through. Okay, blowing shofar. How do you blow shofar? Halachas, or she took the practical how to blow a shofar? What? Halachas? Tufkiv Tzadik. Okay, Tufkiv Tzadik, I think everybody knows the shit is Yom Triya Yilachem. The main thing is a Triya, it's a Yom Triya. It's a day of Truah. Truah is a cry, not a cry, a sad cry. If we're crying out loud, we're crying, we're calling, it's like wailing, the wailing wall. The wailing is a sound, it's a type of sound. We're talking about the sound of cry. We're not talking about the sadness of cry. It's a big mistake. People think it's crying, a sadness. It's not sad. It's the wailing sound of crying. That's a sound that you make when you want to wake someone up. Think about anything. If it's alarm clock, if it's the emergency vehicles, any sound that you want to catch someone's attention is going to be such a kind of wailing sound. It's going to be a sound that doesn't stop, keeps on starting and stopping. That's the sound of a truah. A little child wants to get the mother's attention. He cries because the mother can't ignore after 5 minutes. She goes, "Meshuggah." That crying sound. It's something. It's very demanding. It demands a person's attention. By the English malich, in England, the malich they have of their person, he's called a wailer. His job is when the melech comes in, he takes that thing and makes a sound like a ratzoita sound, like a wailing type of sound, and everyone knows to keep quiet. It's such a kind of idea. It's a Yom Triya Yilachem. We're making a truah. We're waking everybody up, and everyone knows the message is very clear. We know what the message is. That's the Yom Triya Yilachem, and therefore the main thing is the truah. What a truah is a question. If a truah is what we call a truah, if it's a shvarim, or it's a shvarim truah together, shima achas, beis nashim, those are all the shittas, what a truah is. But the main thing is it's a truah, and the tkiya lefanah la'achreya is only, I would say, like to accompany the tkiya. That's the Pnei Yeshua says. The main thing, the Tekias Lefnei is just to accompany the Tekias. And therefore, the Tekias has to be as long as a Truah, whatever the Truah is. If it's a Truah, or it's a Shvarim, or it's a Shvarim Truah, with the Neshim Achas, Beis Neshimas, that's going to be the length of the Tekias. Now, it has nothing to do with seconds, nothing to do with time. People are busy with the stopwatch, it's nothing to do with times. The Ban says clearly it has to do with Truah delay, it has to do with how you blow a Truah. If your Truah is so long, that's how long your Tekias has to be. You could measure it with time, how long your thing is, how long your truah is. But you can measure it. If you're going to make a long truah, pashtus, you have to only make 9. You have to measure only the 9. You don't have to measure if you're going to make, 18. The Ma'adam Zman brings such a kind of shit. But pashtus, you have to only count the shear that you need. So that's going to be your shear of Tekiah. Shvarim, I'm sure you went through, there's all types of shvarim. There's the straight one, there's the broken shvarim, right? The one that, say the litfisher, there's the straight ones that go like this, and then there's the, right? So some say this is better because even if you're going to make longer, it's still not going to be considered a Tekiah. We have always a problem if the shvarim is going to be too long, it might be considered a Tekiah. If it's straight, it sounds just like a Tekiah, then it might be becoming a Tekiah if it's too long. But if you're going to make it broken, some say it's better. I guess it's never going to become a Tekiah. Then you have the litfisher, they make the Lubavitch also makes something similar to it. It's more the Russian litfisher shvarims. Interesting shit to Rabbi Chaim and the Elef HaMogen that everyone knows, that he says you can measure the shvarim. It doesn't have to be only 3. You could add on, if you have 4 shvarim, you could count it in, because the 3 shvarim have to equal the same as Truah, according to the Revam, has to equal to 9, right? But others hold that it doesn't have to be equal to it doesn't have to, not the Revam. Other shitta says that it's, if you're going to make it more than 3, it's not going to be good. So it has to be less than 3. So it's impossible to make it exactly. It's very hard. So Reb Chaim came up with this idea that you can make 4 small shvarim, and the 4th one you can add on to the shear. You can add on to the shear of the shvarim. That's what the brisker do. 4 small ones. They go uttu. 4 shvarim. Yeah, the Elef HaMogen brings it also. If you look in the Mata Frame in the bottom, they have Elef HaMogen. He brings the same thing.
5.
4. Truas, I think we spoke about the truas. Everyone knows the yakasha, the taimana and the yakasha both have the same truas. Most probably those truas are the original truas, which is very hard to do. And later on came the truas that we have. That's what I imagine. There's a lot of, if you go through the Rishonim, Pashtas, you see almost all the Rishonim, it sounds like the Rishonim had that kind of trua. Because the Lashon, when it comes to trua, you see the Lashon when the Mechaber says that you could make more truas. It says the Lashon, you could be moisif as much as you want. When it comes to Tekias, it says you could be marich, because Tekias is one long thing, so it says the Lashon, you could be marich. And by trua, it says the same thing, you could be marich. So it seems like the trua was one long thing. It was bumpy, but it was one long thing. I have to demonstrate, I think it was already demonstrated. What? What? I'm not perfect at it. You have to go to the KAJ between Mincha and Ma'ariv, and you'll hear it over there. They know how to do it very well. It sounds something similar to this. It's shaky. You don't use your tongue. We use the tongue to make to chop it up. They use the stomach muscle. They keep on shaking up and down to stop and start in the thing itself. Let me see if you can do it with this, maybe better. Something like that. Like a wobbly sound.
If you're going to blow either the Litz Shofar or the extra Shofar, is there any reason then after the davening to do a round of Rashi Tekias to be yoitz of different shittas?
If you want to be yoitz of different shittas, you could.
You made the Shofar different, not Shutim, was in order to be...
If you want to be yoitz of the shittas, you could. But you don't have to. You could be yoitz of the shitta that you're Mesoida, whatever you're Mekabel from your father, from your Rabbi, you could be yoitz. If you want to be yoitz of the shittas, you could try all of them. Rashi's, you just have to do the shvarim. The true is the same. Because Rashi doesn't have a problem if you add on. He says it's 3 is a trua, but if you make more, it's not a problem. So you're only going to have to change the shvarim. You're going to have to redo the shvarim and the shvarim, the tashrat, the shvarim and truas. Because that's a set. But you don't have to do over the truas if you want to do over Rashi's.
We should have different shvarim, nuances of the shvarim.
Right.
Nuances of the difference.
Right, because Rashi has to be less.
To the differences, nuances, how to do them, maybe that would help.
What do you mean?
Demonstrate the Shofar.
Which the Rashi's?
No, the Rashi's and the
Rashi's is like this. That's the Shvam, like Rashi. If you want to make the Revam, it's like this. It's 3 koiches. Rashi's, it's 1.5 or 2 koiches. It has to be around 2 koiches. So you're going to be making, the Tekias is also going to change now. Because if you have a short shvarim, the Tekias is going to be short. So it's going to sound like this. There's going to be Rashi's shvarims. Like that. I made the Tekiya a little too long. And the Tashrat is going to sound like this. Anything else?
Is there a chilek in the Rashbam's trua, then
which is the Rashbam?
Rivam's trua, then Rashi's trua?
The Rivam says it has to be 9, and Rashi says 3 is enough. But Rashi also agrees if you make 9, it's good, so it shouldn't be a problem. Okay? Nick? Huh? The Tekias have to, for the Rivam, the Tekias have to be longer, yeah. Right. That's the Mechaber says. If your Turur, whatever, let's put it like this. The inside, if you have a machzav, you'll see Tekiya, Shvarim, Tekiya, Shvarim. The inside, whatever the inside, the length of the inside, that's how much the Tekiya has to be. You could record the inside, see how long it takes you. Most people, it doesn't take more, Shvarim doesn't take more than a second and all the Tekiyas together shouldn't be more than 3 seconds, between 3 and 4 seconds, usually. Some people make it quicker, some people make it a little slower, but that's around that should be around between 3 and 4 seconds.
What should be 3 or 4 seconds?
That should be, not should be, usually is. There's no should be. If you want to make it, you want to blow like this or true, it's also kosher. It's someone doesn't have a quick tongue, it's also kosher. It doesn't have to be shooting out like, some people could shoot out the trua in 1 second, like 20. It doesn't have to be. But the person that makes it quicker, he could have a shorter tekiah. The person that makes it longer is going to have to make a longer tekiah. So you have to measure how long it takes you.
So you're saying the 2 or 3 seconds is the whole trua?
The 2 or 3 seconds, I was talking about the whole trua, yeah. Now, in the Shima Achas, Bais and Shimas, there's 2 shittas. There's the Mishnah Brura and the Shulchan Aruch, right? Chazanish, that's a hard one. Chazanish, what the Chazanish means. The Mishnah Brura is Shvarim Trua. Without taking a breath. You're stopping the amount that you would take a breath. The Shulchan Aruch says you have to actually take a breath, but not Yosem Mekadei Neshim. It has to be a very short breath. It's going to be like this. Sniffle in. Chazanish says it's not enough that you're making Shvarim Trua one after another. It has to be with one koyach. That means one push. You're giving one push and you're pushing the whole thing out at once. So it might be very, very similar, but he's saying it has to be one dechifa, one push. It's one push. You're giving one push at once. It's something. I would say it's more what?
You can't do it yekish. You do the yekish.
Rabbi, you could do it if you.
If you want only pushing that muscle more than up and down.
So you're gonna have to start shaking, right? You're gonna have to start shaking that muscle, right?
It's maybe like.
He's saying it's an extra push. I hear. So Chazon Shvu doesn't work with the yekish through. Okay, it's a good one. Okay.
What's the mistakes? What are the mistakes? What's the biggest mistakes?
Let's put it like this. If you wanted to blow whatever it is, and it just didn't work, usually, I'm not saying b'derech klal, if you wanted to blow whatever it is, if the shram, so usually what you wanted to blow and it didn't come out what you wanted to blow, you could continue blowing. If you made a mistake, you thought that you're supposed to blow one thing and you really blew something else, then you have to always go back to the beginning of that line. You have to start the tekiah again. But there is exceptions. This is b'derech klal. There is certain exceptions. Okay, so the Abshal helfen, huh?
Make it have in the middle of the, let's say, tekiah, start the tekiah. Stop for a second.
If you're mapsik, it's not a tekiah. It's not a tekiah. You could start again. If you wanted to make a tekiah and you were niskal, it didn't, came out a little bit and it didn't, you just start again. That's not a problem.
Even the second tekiah.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference which tekiah you're up to. If you started, only problem would be by a trua. If you started making a trua and you made 3 and then you stopped, so you yotze according to Rashi and you want to make a revam, there are exceptions. That's what I'm saying. There are exceptions. If you made, let's say, 3 and then you stopped, so according to Rashi you already have a trua. It already is a real thing, because according to Rashi it's a real trua, and you want to be yotze revam. So then I'm going to tell you to start over again the tekiah. Then start again. Yeah.
If the shell of what the trua is, the way the vav is, the sobbing, the crying, why is it we have the svarim or the trua and the svarim trua
together?
It should be the trua svarim.
When someone starts crying, he usually starts first geniche ganach and then is yilile yalal. That's the derech haboichem. They first start.
The Gemara speaks the other way, I think. Gemara says that. You understand? I'm trying to say, and actually, the person cries the other way around.
No.
First they start crying with a lot of stuff, and when they finish, they catch their breath. Then it's more like a shvar.
You're saying a person usually cries like a trua and then like a shvar?
Catch their breath like a trua.
If it usually escalates, it starts off slow and then it starts escalating more and more and more.
They catch their breath, and they start sobbing.
You want to say they catch the breath, so always should be Bais Neshimas? That's what you're saying?
No, not the Neshimas.
You want the Seder? I think it goes the other way. Usually a person starts slowly and then it gets worse and worse. A crying usually starts slowly and it starts escalating more and more. Think about the mother of Sisra. She started first, thinking it's not good. Oh my, it's getting worse and worse and worse. It's still not coming. So she started going into another level of crying. Okay, da habe ich laufen so an Aksivich sind mit Teufel so solche Sachen the Ka b'Shofar Gudel l'Chai Resaini. Shofar, everyone, Aksivach Simatoiv, and I get to get Ben Shtiwa.